Okay, Representative Bliss, your bill is, would you like to move your bill before the committee and that it be re-referred to the Commerce and Regulatory Reform Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would.
Representative Bliss, your bill is before us, and please tell us about your bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. House File 368 is a consumer protection bill prohibiting the reassignment of military benefits. We've seen, I have some articles if anybody's interested. I didn't want to print too many, so if you're interested, raise your hand. There's been some predatory lenders out there, and they'll approach veterans and purchase their retirement benefits at dimes to the dollar, and it really hurts our veterans. And I've asked Ben from the Attorney General's office to come in and explain a little bit of what he's seen in this state.
Please introduce yourself. Welcome to the committee, and please introduce yourself and who you represent.
Mr. Chair, members, my name is Benjamin Velzen. I'm an Assistant Attorney General with the Minnesota Attorney General's Office, and I want to thank the members for having me here and giving me the opportunity to testify today, and I also want to thank Representative Bliss for asking me to testify today, too. I'll be quick and just run through a high-level overview and then be happy to answer any questions after that. House File 368 concerns the issue of oftentimes unscrupulous companies taking advantage of Minnesota veterans by loaning them money, often at usurious interest rates, that is then paid off by more or less appropriating their military pension and other benefits. I'll give a couple examples of folks who've gotten in touch with the office about this issue. One, which occurred in fall 2015, a senior citizen from Brooklyn Park who is a disabled Marine Corps veteran and fought in Vietnam contacted us about this matter. He thought he had taken out a $2,000 loan from a loan company. Only later did he come to realize that he had agreed to pay off this loan over the course of 3 years by paying back a total of $10,800. And for those of you who are trying to do the math in your head, that's an effective interest rate annually of 179%. This veteran, the pension for this veteran was his sole source of income, and now as he's trying to continue to pay off this loan, he's struggling to get by. Another example of somebody who got in touch with the office was a Rochester senior citizen.
Let's hold up here. We got.
Reveille, everybody should stand.
That's a good one. All in. Yeah. That's 25 push-ups, by the way. Okay, here we go. Continue.
Mr. Chair, members, the second example I wanted to highlight was a Rochester senior citizen and a widow of an Air Force veteran. Similar to the prior example, she took out what she thought was a loan for about $2,100 about 6 months ago in June 2016. In actuality, she had agreed to allow a loan company to take almost $11,000 from her deceased husband's military pension benefits. Again, the effective annual interest rate for this loan is about 170%. So the really troubling aspect about this is that federal law already prohibits soliciting veterans to assign their right to their military benefits in return for compensation. The problem was, even though this is prohibited by federal law, there has been no enforcement mechanism. So what we have seen is that the only time folks who have found themselves in this type of transaction are able to assert this kind of federal law as a defense is when they declare bankruptcy and as part of the bankruptcy proceeding. So House File 368 resolves this issue in two quick manners. It authorizes the Attorney General to take an enforcement action against companies violating the federal law by soliciting folks to enter into these type of military pension contracts. And secondly, it protects Minnesota veterans by voiding these contracts so they don't have to declare bankruptcy to take advantage of this prohibition of these type of contracts in federal law. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Do we have any questions? Yes, Chair Davids.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the gentleman from the Attorney General's office and to the author. This is a great bill, and this just makes blood shoot out of my eyes when I think that this is going on. But to the gentleman from the Attorney General's office, you mentioned that it could go backwards and make null and void previously entered into contracts, how can you do that?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Representative, I don't think it would go backwards. What would happen is if the bill becomes law, the contracts would be prohibited from that date forward. So,
Chair David?
Well, Mr. Chairman, to the gentleman from the Attorney General's office, we're the Veterans Affairs Committee. We can do whatever we'd like. Can we go backwards?
Mr. Vinson?
Mr. Chair, Representative, there's some considerations in regard to interfering with contract provisions that are already in place, and I believe that's constitutional in nature. It's not a firm line, but there are some implications with that. So I don't want to predict what the impact might be without further consideration.
Mr.
Davids?
Chairman, this goes to Commerce.
Yes, it does.
Could I
Chair
direct
Davids.
Mr. Cook to be creative on some solutions?
We'll do that, Chair Davids. Any other questions? Representative Lesh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm trying to recall from contracts class, I don't think I've got this right, but if a legislature subsequently invalidates a certain class of contract, that thereby makes the contract voidable but not void per se, but I might be wrong on that. Thereby, a person could still avail themselves of the benefits of the contract, but could unilaterally void it if they so chose. But I don't know, maybe we can get some help on that. I know we don't have civil law researchers in here, but my question is for the gentleman from the Attorney General's office. How many of these suits would you anticipate the Attorney General would take up per year if we were to pass this?
Mr. Velzen?
Mr. Chair, Representative, it's a little hard to say. It would depend on how many folks got in touch with our office indicated that, we did business with a particular company, and this particular company is, signed to itself the right to my military pension. What I can say is, this type of situation makes my blood boil as well, and so I would imagine we'd be very interested in pursuing as many cases as we could should this bill become law.
So,
Representative Lesh?
Mr. Chair, thank you. So did this, and I honestly, I didn't read the bill language itself. I read the summary and overview, but does this add to the list of cases in which the Attorney General's office has jurisdiction, this language specifically to that long list of things that you guys can do? Is that the way it modifies it?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
Representative,
Velson?
there is a provision in the bill that gives us authority under Minnesota statutes 8.31 to take an enforcement action over violations of this law should it be enacted.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Mr. Representative O'Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Velzen, starting with my first question, why did it take so long for us to get here today on this one? This has been lurking around for a while.
Mr. Velzen?
Mr. Chair, Representative, you know what, I think that's a good question. We have seen an uptick in folks contacting our office about this lately, even though it has been around for a while. I know there's been issues percolating for a number of years, and I'm just glad to be here testifying in support of the bill today.
And with that said, I didn't know that this was going on. Probably nobody on this committee knew that it was going on. Mr. Velzen came to my office and brought it to our attention. So that's why it's here right now. Mr. Velzen? Representative O'Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Velson, thank you for reaching out to the chair when you decided that you had enough information to be able to promulgate something for action by the legislature. Second question, I guess, Mr. Velson, I have for you is, will the Attorney General's office be looking to continue to protect the rights of veterans and veteran survivors with these benefits by initiating some class action suits if they are not, as Representative Lesh said, able to unilaterally void their contract as a result of the impending passage of such a law?
Mr. Velzen?
Mr. Chair, Representative, I can say that should the law be enacted and our office be given authority to enforce the prohibition in federal law that is already on the books, we would, of course, prioritize looking at every way we can to make sure that Minnesota veterans are given the protection of this law and are not taken advantage of by unscrupulous loan companies.
Mr. O'Driscoll? Okay. Are there any other questions? We got Becker Finn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is related to Representative Driscoll's questioning. Just wondering what efforts, if any, have been made to bring this to the attention of the feds? If, if this is already a violation of the law, is it that they don't know about it? Why has there been no action?
Mr. Velzen?
Mr. Chair, Representative, I can say that I can't speak for, why various federal officials have or have not done certain things. I know there has been some related legislation introduced the last couple sessions in Congress. Representative's name is escaping me right now. He's from Pennsylvania. It did not pass, and I'm not as familiar with the details why it did or did not as I perhaps should be, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. What, any other questions from the audience that wish to testify? What I see happening here is, as we move this bill forward, we're telling people in the state of Minnesota, those veterans that are retired here, and I think we're probably going to have more veterans retired here based on legislation passed in the past, that we're going to do what's right and make sure that you're not taken advantage of. So Representative Bliss renews his motion that House File 368 be re-referred to Commerce and Regulatory Reform Committee. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails and the House 368 is re-referred to the Commerce.